Before we dive into this wild HOA showdown, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications because I've got plenty more real-life Karen stories and neighborhood drama you won't want to miss. Have you ever had someone march right up to your front yard and tell you that you don't belong there, even though it's your name on the deed? That's exactly what happened to me when an HOA Karen decided she was going to flex her so-called authority. But what she didn't realize was that she had just picked the absolute wrong person to mess with. Because not only was I prepared, I had the receipts, the legal knowledge, and more importantly, the patience to watch her dig her own grave. It started on a sunny Saturday morning. I was outside, trimming some hedges along my driveway. Birds were chirping, my dog was lounging in the shade, and I was actually enjoying one of those rare peaceful moments at home. That's when I heard it, the sharp clicking of heels against pavement. I looked up, and there she was. A short, stern-faced woman with a blonde bob haircut, sunglasses perched on her head, and a clipboard clutched tightly in her hands. You already know the type. The self-appointed sheriff of the neighborhood. She didn't even bother with a hello. Instead, she jabbed her pen toward me and said, "Excuse me, you can't be here. This isn't your property." I froze for a second, thinking I'd misheard her. "I'm sorry, what?" I asked, wiping the sweat from my forehead. "You heard me," she snapped. "This land belongs to the HOA. You're trespassing. If you don't pack up and leave immediately, I'll have no choice but to call security and file a report." Now, here's the thing. You never expect someone to just casually try and kick you off your own land. But I knew exactly what was going on. This Karen wasn't confused. She wasn't mistaken. She was deliberately trying to intimidate me into backing down. What she didn't know is that I'd been dealing with her little power trips for months already. From sending me letters about my trash cans to complaining about the color of my shutters, she had always found something to nitpick. But this time she went too far. I calmly set down my hedge trimmers, leaned on the handle, and gave her the kind of smile that probably irritated her more than anything else. "Well," I said, "I'd love to see you try. Because last time I checked, the mortgage company doesn't send the bill to you." Her face went red instantly. She sputtered something about rules and common ground before storming off. And right then, I knew I wasn't going to let this one slide. This wasn't just about me anymore. It was about standing up to a bully who thought a clipboard gave her control over everyone's lives, and I was more than ready for battle. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of papers being shoved into my mailbox. I peered through the blinds, and sure enough, there she was, Karen herself, scribbling on her clipboard before stuffing a thick envelope inside. She caught me watching and gave me this smug little wave as if she had already won. I walked outside after she left and pulled the envelope out. Inside was a stack of printed violations, all worded in bold red letters. They accused me of occupying HOA property without authorization and engaging in landscaping activities on common grounds. I almost laughed. Landscaping? On my own yard? According to her, the strip of grass and hedges that lined my driveway apparently belonged to the HOA. Never mind that I had the property survey, the official deed, and even the original builder's map all proving the land was mine. But here's the kicker. At the bottom of the notice was a threat. Failure to vacate this property within 7 days will result in legal action, fines, and potential removal. That's when I realized Karen wasn't bluffing. She was actually trying to push this as far as she could. And honestly, that made it even better for me. So I called up my buddy Mark, who happens to be a real estate attorney. I told him everything, from the ridiculous accusation to the so-called violations. When I finished, he just chuckled and said, "She picked the wrong fight. Don't worry, we'll handle this." But before we could even move forward, Karen escalated things herself. That same afternoon, She came storming back down the street with 2 other HOA board members in tow. They looked less enthusiastic than she did, almost embarrassed to be following her around. Karen pointed at me like she was directing a police raid. There he is. He refuses to leave. He's illegally occupying HOA property. One of the board members raised a hesitant hand. Karen, are you sure about this? I thought that section. Don't question me, she snapped. This is why the neighborhood is falling apart, because nobody enforces the rules. I leaned casually against my porch railing, letting her rant. When she finally paused, I held up a folder. Funny you say that, because I've got the survey, the deed, and the maps right here. Want to take a look? The 2 board members immediately perked up, curiosity written all over their faces. But Karen? She looked like she'd just bitten into a lemon. She barked at them not to look, claiming it was irrelevant. And in that moment, I knew I had her exactly where I wanted. By now, the situation had escalated into a full-blown standoff. Karen stood on my driveway with her clipboard like it was a sword, while I held my folder like a shield. The 2 HOA board members shifted nervously, clearly caught between siding with their power-hungry president or admitting she'd gone too far. I flipped open the folder and pulled out the first document. Here's the property deed, I said, handing it over to the nearest board member. You'll see my name, my signature, and the exact lot number listed. The man scanned it quickly, nodding. Yep, looks official. Karen snatched it out of his hands, glaring at me. This doesn't prove anything. Deeds can be misleading. The HOA owns all shared land in this community. I raised an eyebrow. Shared land? This is my driveway hedge. Do you see anyone else mowing this grass or trimming these bushes? Pretty sure no one from the HOA has ever stepped foot here to maintain it. Then I pulled out the survey map. And this, I said, unfolding the large paper for everyone to see, is the property survey done when I bought the house. See those lines? That's the boundary. And guess what? This hedge is well within it. The second board member leaned in closer, nodding slowly. He's right, Karen. It looks pretty cut and dry. Karen's face flushed crimson. She clutched her clipboard tighter, her voice rising. You're all being deceived. He's manipulating paperwork to make himself look innocent. We can't just take his word for it. I couldn't help but smirk. It's not my word, it's the county recorder's office. Unless you think they're in on some grand conspiracy to protect my hedges. That's when Karen did something I'll never forget. She threw her hands up and declared, "Fine. If you want to play this game, then we'll take it to court. The HOA will not tolerate this kind of disrespect." The board members exchanged uneasy glances. Neither of them looked thrilled about the idea of dragging the HOA into a lawsuit over a patch of grass. I leaned forward, lowering my voice just enough to make sure it cut deep. Karen, you might want to rethink that. Because if you take me to court, everything becomes public record. Every decision, every misuse of HOA funds, every complaint you've brushed off. All of it. Her jaw dropped, but she quickly snapped it shut. She muttered something about preparing documents before storming off yet again, leaving the board members behind, and right there, standing on my driveway, they both admitted she might have just dug herself into a hole she can't climb out of. The following week was oddly quiet. No more surprise notices in my mailbox, no angry knocks on my door, no Karen marching around with her clipboard like a drill sergeant. Honestly, it felt suspicious. And sure enough, the silence didn't last long. One evening, I was coming home from work when I saw flyers taped to nearly every mailbox on the street. In big bold letters, they read, "Community warning, unauthorized occupation of HOA property." And right underneath, my name. Karen had taken her crusade to the entire neighborhood. She was trying to turn everyone against me. painting me as some sort of outlaw squatting on land that didn't belong to me. I stood there holding the flyer, shaking my head in disbelief. But instead of getting angry, I smiled. Because this was the moment I'd been waiting for. The next day, I organized a little community meeting. I invited neighbors to come by my front yard that evening. I promised snacks, drinks, and most importantly, the truth. Word spread quickly, and by 7 o'clock, half the neighborhood was gathered around my driveway. I set up a projector screen and laid out my documents like it was a courtroom. People murmured, clearly curious about what was going on. That's when Karen showed up, storming in with her arms crossed, glaring daggers at me. "Don't listen to him," she shouted before I could even start. "He's been trespassing, breaking the rules, and lying to all of you." I didn't raise my voice. I simply clicked the projector and displayed the county property map. The survey lines glowed bright on the screen. "Here's my lot, officially recorded. Everything inside these boundaries is mine. That hedge she's so obsessed with? Right here within my property line." Gasps and whispers rippled through the crowd. One neighbor raised their hand. "So wait, you're saying she's been wrong this whole time?" Karen's face twisted. "No, he's manipulating." But before she could finish, another neighbor cut her off. "Karen, I've lived here 10 years, and I've never once seen the HOA touch his yard. He's always maintained it himself. Why are you wasting everyone's time?" One by one, people started speaking up. Some shared their own run-ins with Karen. Others rolled their eyes, clearly tired of her antics. The tide was turning right in front of her, and she knew it. Finally, one of the HOA board members who had been quiet until now stepped forward. "Enough. We've seen the documents. We've heard the neighbors. This is private property. Karen, you've overstepped your authority." Karen's jaw clenched so tight I thought she might crack a tooth. She tried to argue, but the crowd wasn't buying it anymore. Her power was slipping fast, and there was nothing she could do to stop it. Karen didn't take her humiliation well. After the neighborhood meeting, she disappeared for a couple of days. No one saw her pacing the sidewalks. No more flyers mysteriously appearing in mailboxes. Honestly, it was almost too quiet. I knew she wasn't done. Sure enough, on Friday morning I got a letter, this time on official HOA letterhead. It was a final notice declaring that I had 7 days to remove myself from the encroached property or face immediate legal action. At the bottom, in bold black ink, was her signature. That was the mistake that ended her reign. See, the HOA board as a whole never approved this. Karen had sent it herself, using the HOA's name without their consent. That little detail turned her crusade into something much bigger: misrepresentation and abuse of authority. I wasted no time. With Mark, my attorney friend, we drafted a response and sent it not just to Karen, but to every single board member. We included a copy of her final notice, the property deed, survey, and a reminder of what happens when someone fabricates authority. By the next HOA meeting, word had spread like wildfire. The clubhouse was packed. Neighbors who rarely showed up were there, eager to see what would unfold. I sat quietly in the back, letting the show play out. Karen marched in, still clutching her clipboard, trying to look confident. But when the board president, yes, the real one, who had been absent until then, read my letter aloud, her face drained of all color. "Karen," he said firmly, "you acted without authorization, threatened a homeowner, and distributed false information under the HOA's name. This is a serious breach of trust." Murmurs erupted across the room. Some neighbors even laughed bitterly. Karen tried to defend herself, sputtering about protecting the community and keeping order, but no one was listening anymore. The board voted right then and there. By a unanimous decision, Karen was stripped of her position. She was barred from sending notices, barred from enforcing rules, and most importantly barred from harassing her neighbors ever again. I'll never forget the look on her face as she gathered her things and stormed out of the room, clipboard clutched tightly like a life raft. She didn't even glance my way, though I could feel the heat of her fury from across the room. When the meeting ended, neighbors came up to shake my hand. Some thanked me for standing up to her. Others joked that I had slayed the dragon. And as I walked home that night, I realized something important. Sometimes, the only way to deal with a bully is to let them self-destruct. Karen thought she could kick me off my own property. Instead, she lost everything. And me? I got my peace and quiet back.